The Art of Negotiation, Micheal Wheeler. Both professional and personal environments demand negotiation skills. Whether you want to sell a house or get a pay raise, a good negotiation strategy is useful to have. So how do you go about crafting your negotiation master plan? Micheal Wheeler's The Art of Negotiation looks at negotiations in real life and provides a framework of how to prepare yourself. Get ready to become a master negotiator. Preparation is everything. Until now, there have generally been two accepted conventional models of successful negotiation. Either it is a win-lose or a win-win negotiation. In the first case, both parties are so stubborn that eventually one must cave in. Alternatively, both parties take the interest-based approach adopted by William Ury in getting to yes, meaning that both parties come to an agreement that is beneficial for each. While both of these models work in theory, the reality is that negotiation is much more complex. Most negotiators, whether they are politicians or businessmen, agree that to be successful, you must embrace chaos. Negotiations are dynamic, and it is important that you stay agile throughout. Nevertheless, you should always go into a negotiation well prepared. You must know what your ultimate goal is, as well as your baseline. That is, the lowest alternative you are willing to accept. You need to create your own map beforehand to guide you through your negotiations. A map gives you confidence, impetus, and awareness. Just take the example of a group of soldiers caught in a blizzard in the Swiss Alps. They had completely lost their way and had no idea if they would make it out alive. Luckily, one soldier found a map at the bottom of his backpack. They made camp for the night, and once the blizzard had cleared, they used the map to find their way back home. Several days later, they were back at camp, and the astonished commanding officer asked how they had survived. They showed him the map, and upon scrutinizing it, it turned out that this had been a map of the Pyrenees, not the Alps. Simply having a plan to stick to had given the soldiers the resolve to live and to make it back to camp. The same is true for negotiations. Wheeler says that when you have a backup plan, you are more confident in your dealings. However, you should not underestimate the importance of improvising. Since negotiations are dynamic environments, you should avoid sticking to obsolete, rigid plans. To do this effectively, Wheeler suggests asking yourself 3 questions before starting any negotiation. 1. Should I negotiate? Which position are you in right now? What's your goal, and what are your fallback options? 2. Is now the time? What are the circumstances of your negotiation partner? Are you likely to be successful? 3. Do I hedge or go all in? Which key factors do you not know at the outset? To successfully answer these questions, it can be helpful to do a pre-mortem to balance out optimism and realism, and to avoid wishful thinking. Take some time to imagine the most likely ways there could be a major setback or a pleasant surprise. That way, you are less likely to be surprised during the negotiation. Improvising. Even though preparation in advance is essential for a successful negotiation, things might not go according to plan once you have started. Negotiations are shrouded in fog, so there is only so much you can know ahead of time. That is why it is important to adopt the right mindset from the outset. You must have emotional and mental calmness to stay in control of the situation. Master negotiators are both calm and alert, patient and proactive, practical and creative. If feelings do arise, put them to creative use. Be like a jazz player. Jazz musicians, unlike classical music players, do not have sheet music. They start with a theme, and then each instrument improvises upon the theme. The fact is that the various musicians do not have to know or even like each other to create wonderful, harmonious music. Take the Roots, for example. 2 of the founders of this famous jazz band do not get along on a personal level, but the music they create together still inspires the masses. A good negotiator is not only internally centered, but also aware of the negotiating partner's emotional state. Pay special attention to what the other person is saying, but also how they say it. Their intonation, wording, and body language all provide clues to how the other person is feeling. To improvise successfully, you should adopt a mindset of cautious optimism. Stay positive while simultaneously keeping an unflinching realism. To hone your improvisation skills, you could also look at improv comedy troupes for inspiration. They bring the mindset of jazz to their own work. One important skill they display is that anything they say on stage will propel the story forward. For example, an improv show could start with, "Brad, I never expected to see you here at the South Pole," rather than beginning with just a simple, "Hi." Another crucial role of improv comedy is to always agree and never negate. The other person on stage, for example, would not answer, "Actually, my name is Angela, and we are in the Sahara," but could say, for example, "Yeah, when the company said it would give me the Southern Territory, I expected Florida, maybe." Wheeler says you should also give up the goal of always saying the perfect thing at the perfect time. In real life, that is simply not possible. Much of the pressure you feel prior to a negotiation is self-imposed, and a fear of making a mistake will throw you off balance. Closing the deal. How do you know when it is time to close the deal? Take the example of a friend of the author, Ben Evans. He was offered a position at Arundel University, which would have been a great step up in his career. Normally, new hires were granted visitor status for 1 year before being granted a permanent position at the university. Since Evans was a well-known professor at the time, he asked to be granted permanent status immediately, which Arundel agreed to. He also negotiated a salary at the upper end of the scale, and even managed to secure more money for the research budget. When the dean asked if they were finished, Evans asked if he could make the move to the university a year later than requested. This was not a deal breaker for him, but he did not make that clear during the negotiations. 2 days later, he received a letter of withdrawal of the offer from Arundel. Evans admits he is still annoyed that he did not take the offer when he got it, rather than pushing for yet another amendment to it. To decide when to take a deal, again, preparation comes in handy. Had Evans considered the other side's position beforehand, rather than only thinking about his own wishes, he might have been able to negotiate more effectively. Still, it is incredibly hard to say when to close a deal or push for more, since often, the only way you can know how far the other person is willing to go is by going one step too far and losing out on the entire deal. The key to deciding is to assess the risk. Are the possible wins worth the uncertainty, or would it be better to close the deal now rather than risk losing it completely? It is also important to pick the right way of saying yes. In Evans's case, for example, Wheeler says it might have been better for his friend to say something like, "Excellent, we've got a deal, for sure. I'd really appreciate it, though, if you could help me out on one last item." Even with all your preparation, you should still anticipate last-minute blow-ups. Real estate deals in particular are usually fraught with emotion, since one party is usually selling their home and the other has hopes for the future. The way you negotiate throughout the process will help set up the ending. So, if you can manage to keep emotions in check and have a respectful and calm negotiation throughout, you can be relatively certain there will not be any unpleasant surprises at the end. In real estate deals, there are usually several intermediaries, so a personal note to the actual seller can often make all the difference. Relationships matter. Become a master negotiator. To be a good improviser and negotiator, you also need to be creative. Often, the best deals are closed when one party can think of a creative solution. Take the example of Joseph Lash, an author who was asked to write a biography about Franklin Roosevelt. After years of research and effort, he finally handed in his 1,400-page biography to the publishing house, who, even though they loved the writing, decided that it was too long. When Lash was asked to make severe cuts, he canceled the deal altogether and went to another publishing house, W.W. Norton & Company. They also loved the writing, and also thought the manuscript was too long. One of the editors came up with a creative solution, however, published the book in 2 volumes. The publishing house did just that, and the series went on to win several book awards. Good negotiators know how to creatively solve negotiation impasses. They know how to use lemons and make lemonade out of them. When you are really stuck, it can also help to ask someone else for advice. Usually, when we have a bit of psychological distance from a problem, we can come up with more imaginative solutions than someone who is stuck in the middle of it. Expert negotiators also learn from their experiences. However, negotiations are wicked learning environments. Wheeler admits that since negotiations are often shrouded in fog, you may never quite know if you could have gotten a better deal. So even when you close a deal at the price you wanted to, you might still feel unhappy about the process. Wheeler warns that you must be careful about the conclusions you draw from your negotiations. Don't blame yourself when a deal goes wrong, but similarly, don't congratulate yourself on your ingenuity when it goes right. The best way to know whether you have made a good deal is to go back to the facts you had at the time. Even when the new facts come to light, you should still evaluate your decision with the original context in mind. You can still learn from your experiences, though, as long as you acknowledge uncertainty and keep these 3 key thoughts in mind. 1. Beware of mislearning. Admitting that you don't know is better than operating from an erroneous conclusion. 2. Don't confuse satisfaction with success. 3. Remember, it's not all about you. Another thing worth keeping in mind is that we are notoriously bad at predicting our future feelings because we tend to overestimate their impact. So the things you deem important now may actually turn out to be less important than expected. So always ask yourself if the fight is worth fighting. Final notes. Far from having a rigid plan, you should embrace uncertainty and chaos in your negotiations. To become a master negotiator, it is much more important to develop your improvisation skills and hone your creativity. Nevertheless, you should prepare your negotiation beforehand by setting a clear goal for yourself and also by defining your baseline. Publishers Weekly rated The Art of Negotiation a must-read, writing a clear-headed, creative approach to negotiation that is on a par with the canonical texts Getting to Yes and You Can Negotiate Anything. Wheeler's lucid, engaging voice is a major asset, and sample scripts help drive home his points. 12-min tip. Before a negotiation, create a catalog of the key factors you know from the outset. How to work from home and make money. 13 proven home-based businesses you can start today. Sam Kerns. According to an article published by Forbes magazine, a little over half of all American small businesses are home-based. Moreover, the owners of these businesses earn combined revenues of nearly $1 trillion. The bad news is that becoming one of them isn't a walk in the park. Quite the opposite. It requires a lot of hard work. The good news, however, is that at no point in history has it been easier to start earning money from the comfort of your house. That's where How to Work from Home and Make Money by Sam Kerns comes in. It goes over the myths and facts of telecommuting and covers 13 proven realistic ways to earn a great income while working from home. Get ready to discover them all. Stop building someone else's dreams. If you are working for somebody else, you are essentially spending most of your time and effort helping them buy a second home, send their kids to college, and take a few European vacations a year. To make matters worse, the bigger the company you are working for, the more money you are making for your boss. Just for illustration, every Starbucks employee earns the coffeehouse chain about $80,000 per year in additional revenue. An employee working at Google earns the tech giant more than $1 million per year. You get the picture, comments Kerns. All those long hours you put in at the office in order to get a measly raise at the end of the year, the company is cashing in on them. Shouldn't you? Starting a home-based business is within the reach of anyone who wants to take a risk and work hard. However, it is not without its challenges, and there is much to consider before making the decision, especially if you are only prepared for sitting on the beach with a laptop while sipping cocktails in the middle of the day. An office of your choice, better work-life balance, flexibility of working hours, greater productivity, greater job satisfaction, they all come with working remotely or from owning your own home-based business, but they are never a given. On the contrary, they have to be earned. Unfortunately, most people don't really know what it means to be in a business for themselves or what it will take them to succeed. So, soon after theoretically quitting their job to work from home, they grow depressed, give up pursuing their dreams, and go back to the job market. Their fundamental mistake? They don't do their research beforehand and don't have a realistic expectation about what it means to work from home. That's why, before going over some specific home-based business ideas, it's essential to put aside a few common myths about self-employment everybody seems to believe in. The top 5 lies about working from home. Working from home isn't as glamorous as it is sometimes made out to be, at least not at the beginning. Sure, not having a boss micromanaging you is great, as is working in your pajamas near a fridge full of snacks. But don't let that fool you for a bit. Wherever you do it from, work is still work, and it is rarely easy. Unfortunately, the challenges remote work poses are often ignored or, even worse, obscured by the undeniable promise of self-employment. To avoid this pitfall, let us go over 5 of the most commonly believed misconceptions about working from home and explain the reality behind them. 1. You only have to work when you want to. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, an average American employee works 33.8 hours a week. According to Inc. magazine, the majority of small business owners work 50 hours per week. When you work for someone else, You usually get paid pretty much the same no matter how many hours you work in a week. When you work for yourself, time is literally money. The more you work, the more you earn. The opposite is also true. In other words, yes, working from home can mean that you can work whenever you want to, but only if you don't want to be a success. 2. You don't have to answer to anybody. When you work for someone, you answer to that someone. Doesn't that mean that when you work for yourself, you only have to answer to yourself? Not at all. Because the minute you trade your job for a home-based business, you also trade your one boss for countless other bosses, your customers. They don't say that customer is the king for nothing. 3. I can quit my job immediately. Most home-based businesses, yes, even the most successful ones, are started on the side. So, if your finances don't allow it, don't make the mistake of quitting your job to work from home before making sure you have enough long-term customers to sustain you. Sure, it might be difficult to work 2 jobs for some period of time, but that's much easier than risking going into debt while being jobless. 4. I need a college education to start a business. According to a study by the U.S. Census Bureau, only 1 in 2 home business owners has a college degree. Somewhat unsurprisingly as today, you can become proficient in many areas with a 3-month Google course. Some areas don't require any specific training at all and still pay quite well. 5. Clients won't take me seriously if I operate my business from home. This might have been true a few decades ago, but times have changed and attitudes have evolved. Even so, you have to be professional in your dealings with customers. In other words, it is still not conventional to hold a Zoom business meeting in your pajamas while eating breakfast and your children are screaming in the background. 5 online home-based business ideas. Some of the most enticing home-based business ideas are the ones that can operate entirely online. Here are the 5 best according to Kerns. 1. Virtual assistant. A virtual assistant is a multifaceted online secretary, an independent contractor who provides various services to clients from a remote location. Unlike full-time assistants, virtual assistants have the ability to service multiple clients at one time. They manage calendars, prepare documents, make travel arrangements, follow up with new customers, and sometimes even conduct research for projects. For this, they are paid between $20 and $45 an hour, on average. The best part is that if you have a knack for organization, a computer, and a good internet connection, you can start your virtual assistant business today. 2. Online retailer. With more and more people shopping online each year, there has never been a better time to start an online store. And you don't have to be an Amazon or an eBay to consider yourself successful. According to the 2015 e-commerce growth benchmark study, an average website brings in about $40,000 a month. The cheapest way to open an online store is to build a website with an easy-to-use e-commerce platform, such as Shopify, BigCommerce, Wix, or Weebly. It doesn't cost much, and it may eventually bring you a fortune. 3. Amazon eBay seller. If opening an online store seems like too big of a trouble, then why not use an already established one to sell your products, whatever they are? If you want to sell recently released items or popular products, then try setting up a seller account on Amazon. If, however, you intend to sell vintage goods, eBay is the best place to set up a virtual shop. There are also other, more specialized alternatives, such as, say, Etsy for crafters and artists, or Craigslist for people who want to sell locally and aren't afraid of spammers. Even so, eBay and Amazon are the most popular marketplaces around for a reason. 4. Indie author. According to a recent report, self-publishers earn almost half of the market share of total author earnings. In other words, if you want to write, then this is your age. You can publish a book without spending a single penny, and you can earn a lot from it with some good promotion and a few 5-star Amazon reviews. However, choose the genre wisely. After all, Westerns and historical books don't sell as well as fantasy fiction or self-help manuals. 5. Freelance writing manager. Interestingly enough, ebook publishing can be a great home-based business, even for people who don't know how to write, or who just don't want to. It's not at all difficult to hire a freelance ghostwriter on a topic of your choice using sites such as Upwork. In fact, you can also hire an editor, a proofreader, and a designer to prepare your book for publication. All you have to do next is set your price, upload the book, and start promoting your book while writing the next one. 5. Offline home-based business ideas. If you'd rather spend your time dealing with people in person rather than online, then maybe you should try your hand at a more traditional business. Before starting one, however, be sure to have a business plan, a mentor, and a legal advisor. Next, you'll need to choose a good business name, register for state and local taxes, and, if necessary, apply for business licenses and permits. As for the type of business itself, consider the following 5 ideas. 1. Home-based food business. If you have a secret recipe or a knack for organizing meals in a special way, maybe you should start a home-based food business. There are numerous options in the industry. The obvious one is making home-based goods and delivering them to clients. You can sell your homegrown fruits and vegetables at your nearest farmer's market. Just as well, you can also become a general caterer that specializes in weddings or other special events. If any of these ideas pique your interest, just do some research, study the law, find a bulk supplier, and start marketing your business. 2. Vending machine business. With vending machines, you can make money in your sleep. Even though it requires some initial investment, it is actually a viable and profitable endeavor. According to a recent report, 18% of existing vending machine owners earn between $1 million and $5 million a year. However, don't just jump on the first vending machine offer you see. There are as many scammers as there are types of machines, so do your research and choose carefully. 3. Professional organizing business. If you are a born planner and facilitator, why don't you try putting your skills to use and become a professional organizer? You can organize anything from closets to homes to garage sales. Just identify your niche, join the National Association of Professional Organizers to get all the necessary tips and tricks, set up an office, and start looking for clients. 4. Renting business. Airbnb is not merely an alternative to hotels. It is a billion-dollar business operating in more than 220 countries with more than 7 million listings and 3 million hosts. Unsurprisingly, there are thousands of people around the globe who earn a full-time income on Airbnb by simply renting out their homes or apartments. If you have some extra space and you don't mind visitors from time to time, then consider becoming a host. In time, you might not even need Airbnb. 5. Home cleaning business. In today's fast-paced world, many people don't have the time to take care of their apartments and rely on cleaning services instead. Use that to your benefit, especially if you are physically able and have the skills to do it. Neither the equipment nor the cleaning products are expensive, and it shouldn't take long for you to find a job. And it's not like it doesn't pay well. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that professional cleaners make on average $14 per hour. 3 bonus work from home opportunities. To round things off, here are 3 of the hottest and most exciting ways to earn money from home as of 2020, the year of the COVID-19 pandemic. 1. Sell online courses to bring in passive income. Just recently, Google launched a selection of professional courses that can turn a novice into a job-ready candidate in just half a year. Many businesses immediately announced that they would accept a Google Career Certificate pretty much the same way they would a traditional university degree. That's the ultimate proof that many college programs are becoming a thing of the past, and that we're heading toward a future of increased e-learning. If you are an expert on any topic, this is a great business opportunity. It may require a lot of work initially, but ultimately it can become a source of almost passive income. 2. Teach your native language online. If you speak just one foreign language well, then you can easily become an online language teacher. Of course, not of the foreign language itself, but, much better, of your own. There are many sites that do not require you be a certified teacher. All you need to do is be able to provide value to your students, and the 5-star reviews will do the rest. The best part is that all you need to get started is a high-speed internet connection, a webcam, a headset, and a telecommunications application such as Skype. As for the online platform, it's really your choice. There are many sites where you can set up a profile and begin teaching students in no time. 3. Earn recurring income with a box subscription service. A subscription box is a carefully designed package of curated, niche-oriented products customers receive by mail on a recurring basis. Thanks to the unique experience they provide, subscription boxes have been all the rage for a while now. Hence, they can form the basis of a great home-owned business. But don't get carried away. Creating a good box subscription service requires more than just an imaginative idea and a knack for artistic crafting. You'll also need the right resources and a willingness to market like crazy. An all-in-one site that lets you set up your subscription, manage payments and customer contacts, and get reviews for customers, Cratejoy is perhaps the best platform to get things going, but there are a few alternatives as well. None of them are expensive. Final notes. How to Work from Home and Make Money by Sam Kerns is neither original nor particularly thorough, but it can be useful and inspiring. If you don't want to spend your time scouring Google for advice and manuals, this is an okay-ish compilation of 13 home-based business ideas with pretty elementary step-by-step instructions for each. But don't expect anything more than that. 12-min tip. Start your home-based business as a side project. Quit your job once you have enough clients to provide you with some stability.
The Confidence Code, The Science and Art of Self-Assurance, What Women Should Know, by Katty K. and Claire Shipman. When a man imagining his future career looks in the mirror, he sees a senator staring back, remarked once political activist Marie Wilson. A woman would never be so presumptuous. This disarmingly simple observation served as the launchpad for the Confidence Code, an interdisciplinary exploration of female reticence and insecurity, and a how-to guide to overcoming those traits painlessly. Going well beyond the confidence trumps competence cliché, journalists Katty K. and Claire Simpson determine the reasons behind the self-assurance gap between men and women, and try to uncover if we can do something to mind it. Get ready to discover more. Stats, gaps, and blind auditions. The economic empowerment of women across the rich world is one of the most remarkable revolutions of the past 50 years, wrote The Economist at the end of 2009. Indeed, it's fascinating to think that just a half a century ago, most women were unemployed housewives, and now, as a whole, wives out-earn their husbands in the United States. Moreover, American women get more college and graduate degrees than American men do. Some of the greatest international companies are run by women. At the time we're writing this, there are 21 female heads of state around the world. Just a short time ago, even one would have been an amazing accomplishment. And yet, remind us Kay and Shipman, some of the other well-known stats aren't at all pretty. For example, women earn just 77 cents for every dollar earned by a man. Only 4% of CEOs in the Fortune 500 are women. There are only 26 women in the United States Senate. And this is still celebrated as a record high, despite amounting to merely 1/4 of all members. Then again, it is still roughly half of all the women who have served in the United States Senate since its establishment in 1789. Believe it or not, as of 2020, that number is still just 58. Up until recently, this gap was conveniently explained by lack of competence. Women, simply put, were thought of as less intelligent and less capable than men for most of modern history. But in the span of just 50 years, they managed to reverse the education gap and even turn it to their favor. Studies have recently shown that, on average, female CEOs outperform male CEOs in professions where equal participation of both sexes can be observed. So competence was never really a problem. To quote Kay and Shipman, when women are given a fair shot at success, they do well. Case in point, classical musicians. Back in 1970, only 5% of the musicians in America's top symphony orchestras were women. That number rose to 25% by the mid-1990s, and the numbers are even higher today. So what happened in the meantime? Fascinatingly enough, the revolution seems to owe everything to a remarkable simple adjustment in the hiring process. Namely, during the 1970s, most symphony orchestras in the United States began adopting blind auditions, putting up a screen to hide the candidate's identity and gender. Based exclusively on the sweet sound of performance, women began getting hired in far greater numbers than ever before. To think that there are people today who still believe there never was such a thing as gender discrimination. Confidence and competence, men and women. Blind auditions improved female musicians' likelihood of being hired by top orchestras, not only because they reduced sex-based hiring, but also because they inadvertently boosted female confidence levels. It's easier to believe in yourself when you're by yourself behind a screen and nobody's watching. It's very difficult when everyone's judging every aspect of your being. This is especially true for women. Even the most successful ones are constantly assessed and disparaged in ways men never are. And that's a very big problem, especially in view of the repeatedly observed fact that success correlates more closely with confidence than it does with competence. The shortage of female confidence is more than just a collection of high-octane anecdotes or wrenchingly familiar scenarios, write Kay and Shipman. It is increasingly well quantified and documented. Take, for example, a British study from 2011, which discovered that more than half of British women doubted their competence and knowledge. Less than a third of the male respondents reported similar feelings. Linda Babcock, a professor of economics at Carnegie Mellon University, did a similar study in the United States. She discovered that men negotiate their salaries 4 times more often than women and ask for 30% more during these negotiations. These findings are in sync with those of Marilyn Davidson, professor at the prestigious Manchester Business School in England. After surveying her students about their expected salaries 5 years after graduation, she found out that there was a consistent $16,000 difference between female and male expectations. Think about that for a minute. Pause here, Kay and Shipman. What Davidson's findings really mean is that women effectively believe they are 20% less valuable than men believe they are. This, of course, affects their behavior and actions throughout their lives and ultimately shapes their destinies. The opposite is true for men. Many of them are successful because they are great at faking it until they make it. In fact, some of them have made it precisely because they have the ability to believe in themselves when they are faking it. Women are not so great at this. How confidence affects intelligence and status. Confidence matters at least as much as competence does, if not more. This is what many studies have shown. This is also what Berkeley psychologist Cameron Anderson learned after giving a group of 242 of his students a list of historical names and events and asked them to tick the ones they knew. Some of the names and events were real or at least believable, such as Pope Joan or the Tunguska explosion, and others, such as Queen Shattuck or Murphy's Last Ride, were wholly invented and purely fictional. The surprising result of the survey was that the people who had misidentified most fakes as actualities were the ones who were both most confident and with the highest social status. So despite being less competent than many of their colleagues, these students were the ones who had the most influence with their peers. Unsurprisingly, the vast majority of them were males. Zach Estes thinks he knows why. A professor at the University of Milan and a renowned researcher of the confidence disparity between men and women, he did a series of tests a few years ago involving more than 500 students. They were tasked with rearranging several spatial puzzles on a computer screen, so it's not an exaggeration to say they had to solve a few simplified Rubik's cubes. Estes opted for such puzzles for a reason. It's a well-established fact that, on average, men outperform women on spatial reasoning tasks that involve mental rotations. This may be one of the reasons why men are better than women at chess. Probably because of evolution, they seem to be able to visualize better and more in space. But Estes was interested in something else. He wanted to see if confidence has something to do with this disparity. What he found out was rather striking. Namely, as expected, at first women scored measurably worse than the men in the group. However, upon further review, Estes realized that the reason behind this could be much more banal than a sex-based predisposition. Many of the women, he discovered, hadn't even attempted to answer a lot of the questions. That's why he repeated the test, this time adding a caveat. Not attempting meant negative points. To his surprise, the women's scores shot up, and they did almost as well as the men. In one of the very few domains where men, on average, have measurably higher spatial intelligence quotients than women. It seems that this might have a lot to do with confidence, and not so much with competence. Sabotage and self-sabotage. As Kay and Shipman observe, the work of Estes illustrates an interesting point, namely that the natural result of underconfidence is inaction. In other words, women hold themselves back by hesitating too much and acting too little. Men don't have this problem, so they tend to get further in life. Afraid of failure and crippled by self-doubt, women would rather do nothing than do something wrong. Men would rather do anything than do nothing. Because humans learn best through trial and error, men set themselves up for success by scoffing off failures as temporary. Women, on the other hand, set themselves up for failure by expecting nothing less than permanent success from themselves. Unfortunately, women don't just sabotage themselves, society interferes with their growth and progress as well. If we walk into our boss's office with unsolicited opinions, Kay and Shipman write, if we speak up first at meetings and give business advice above our pay grade, we are either disliked or, let's not beat around the bush, labeled a bitch. Men don't have these kinds of problems. As Linda Hudson, former president and CEO of BAE Systems, noted in an interview with the authors, when a man walks into a room, they're assumed to be confident until they prove otherwise. For women, it's the other way around. To make matters worse, women want to be liked much more than men do. The $5,000 pay gap is, in many ways, a direct result of their quest for likability. As Sheryl Sandberg pointed out in her best-selling book Lean In, women are expected to bring likability to the table. This makes for a vicious cycle, because being liked does matter, but being too focused on remaining liked kills confidence. Lack of confidence, in turn, kills one's chances to go ahead because it keeps them from employing more aggressive strategies. Dandelions and orchids. Contrary to popular wisdom, women aren't really more vulnerable than men. However, as psychologist Steve Sumi may have accidentally discovered a few years ago, they may be far more sensitive to the environment. There's a big difference between being vulnerable and being sensitive. The former is rooted in passivity. The latter is active and promises hope for the future. Here's why. Rhesus monkeys share 94% of their genes with humans. That is why Sumi has spent several decades studying their behavior. What he discovered was that their sensitiveness may be wired in their genes. Specifically, Sumi was interested in the SLC6A4 gene, present in both rhesus monkeys and humans, and responsible for the absorption of serotonin, one of the so-called happiness hormones. Serotonin also regulates our appetite, sleep patterns, and most importantly, our moods. As a rule of thumb, the more you have of it, the happier and calmer you feel. Now, Sumi noticed that there are two different mutations of the SLC6A4 gene in rhesus monkeys, one with shorter strands and one with longer ones. Then he noticed something even stranger. The longer-stranded SLC6A4 gene was present in almost all of the monkeys showing leadership traits. On the other hand, the monkeys born with shorter strands of the SLC6A4 were observably less social and more afraid to take risks. Put in the simplest terms possible, some monkeys were just born confident, while others weren't as fortunate. Unfortunately, the same seems to be true for humans. Men may simply be pre-programmed to be more confident than women. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You see, the exceptions among the monkeys weren't the ones who were raised by great mothers, and they weren't just ordinary exceptions. They were the best of the bunch. Their genes had made them sensitive not only to the sufferings and pains of life, but also to the good stuff. When given a chance by their families and environment to grow up properly, these monkeys typically outshone all the rest. In scientific circles, this theory is known as the orchid theory. Most boys, psychologists believe, are like dandelions, hardy and able to thrive in many environments. Girls, we now know, can be viewed as orchids, trickier to raise, but if nurtured in the right environment, able to excel beyond even their sturdier dandelion counterparts. Final notes. The Confidence Code is simultaneously enlightening and enjoyable, combining scientific studies with first-hand accounts from some of the world's most powerful women leaders. Again and again, the book demonstrates that men are more successful than women not because they are more competent, but because they have more confidence. Even though it is a bit short on practical advice, the confidence code can certainly help women raise their confidence levels, not the least because it pinpoints the heart of the issue. In the words of best-selling author Gretchen Rubin, Kay and Shipman's book is a fascinating reading for every woman who wants to take her life to the next level. 12-minute tip. Confidence is just as important as competence, if not more. In other words, fake it till you make it is a very sound success strategy. Use it, especially if you're a woman. After all, men have been using the same strategy to get where they are for centuries.